Welcome back. Today we do a quick one on the new TRN VX Pro Plus. Those of you who've been around the hobby for a long time will remember that the TRN V series goes back a long time. Flagship hybrids. This is the newer one. This is the VX Pro Plus, but these are the previous ones. So this one is the VX, I think. No, this is the VX Pro. So what was sort of cool about these sets was metal shells with the satin finish. Very, very nice. At the time, very, very classy shell. Very, very nice build quality compared to what everyone else was doing at the time. So this is the original VX. So they tended to use metal shell, satin finish, and then put some kind of flourish on the faceplate to designate, kind of the newer model and differentiate it from the previous model. So what we got with the VX Pro Plus, and not a metal shell, I think this is more of maybe a plated plastic. It's very lightweight. It's very, very lightweight in your hand. And you can kind of see the nozzle isn't really a metal nozzle. It's sort of this plated thing. So kind of out of the box, quite a bit of disappointment that they ditched the beautiful shells that were part of the history of the V series and replaced it with something that feels like a cost-cutting measure, or something that's not quite the quality to, designate or along the lines of what the V series deserve. So, yeah, a little bit of disappointment out of the box. So we'll go through this one kind of quickly because, I think just in general, I think they tried to shave a little money off of this one and, put something out that had the same name. But, what is it? They would call it the 1DD 8BA flagship hi-fi earphones. Those are their words, but that is traditionally what the V series was. It was their flagship hybrid, and this one, sort of not really any different. It's got, 8 BAs, one dynamic driver, which happens to be a beryllium-coated dynamic driver, so that sounded pretty nice on paper. But is it the return of the legend of the VX series? I would say certainly not on build quality. Certainly this build quality does not match or come close to what it was, but it does have lots of drivers, and they did price it right at about $36 US, and so they didn't really try to do a big money grab and give you, something that was maybe a little less inferior at a much higher price. So I think $36 is probably the same price that the VX series has been for quite a while. And on the fit, again, these shells and these shapes are very, very comfortable to wear. I think TRN is very good at shells. This one is no different. It's just very lighter in weight. So if you don't have sticky tips or tips that sit in your ears, these will move out of your ear quite quickly and quite easily, and you'll end up losing some bass. And that'll be your first indication that something is wrong, is you'll get a very, very light or sort of a bright sounding set. And that sort of means that you either have the wrong size tip or it's working its way out of your ear and you're leaking bass. But either way, make sure, push them in your ears and you'll get a feel for what the bass level should be. And again, it's not all that far from the previous VX series. It's a really nice kind of V-shaped hybrid sound. And on the sound, I'll call this the westernized VX. So the VX and TRN in the past was very much this blue line up here, right? A V-shaped with a very bright, so it's a bright V-shaped sound. That's a very TRN sound. They bring the mids a little bit more forward, so there isn't really recessed mids. Everything is quite in your face, very clear. I think those are the things that sort of signified the TRN sound, the house sound at the time. The VX series, that was very much what I would call it. With the VX Pro, you can kind of see they actually did, I would call this the Western mod to it. So people who are putting micropore tape on it or taping vents, you would end up with a treble that was kind of downsloped as opposed to upsloped like the original VX. So yeah, I think the VX Pro Plus, while I didn't really care for the shell, I do think that this tuning is probably going to be more generally appealing to people who weren't really fans of the brighter TRN tuning of the past, or if you liked a little bit more volume, definitely the Pro Plus is definitely a more easy to listen to set than some of the original VX series, which were definitely a little brighter, definitely more aligned with people who were listening at lower volume. So yeah, I think tuning wise, I think they did a pretty good job there. It's still slightly bright. It's still a lower volume set that feels like TRN tuning, but definitely more approachable in the upper range with a upper range focus sound. Like I said, TRN has always done this brightish, upper range focus sound. This is just a little bit more approachable, a little bit more relaxed, and I think that was a decent move. So in the bass, like I said, this one does have a dynamic driver with a beryllium-coated diaphragm, and I wouldn't call it the star of this one. I think, again, it's still an upper range set. I don't think that really has changed. I think TRN does have dynamic drivers, which are a little bit better than the one that they used. TRN does have, some really nice dynamic drivers that do some really nice bass. This one, not so much. It's okay. I think it just plays a smaller part in the overall tuning. Definitely not a bad tuning decision. They put, perhaps one of their lesser dynamic drivers into it, so no need to really emphasize it, push it back in the mix. That's exactly what they did. So I can't argue with the way they did that. It's not too light, not too heavy. There's a really nice glide to it. There's a really nice bass balance to it. It's just the dynamic driver quality itself it's kind of okay. It's a lot of these things I'm going to kind of go back to replacing the metal shell with a plastic shell. The dynamic driver maybe not as nice as their other ones. We'll see the same thing with the balanced armature. I think just across the board there was a move towards parts that weren't quite what I was expecting with the V series. So the mids, again, this upper mid forward right here, this guy comes a bit forward, just like the previous VX series. Vocal forward, that's perfect at this price point. 8 BAs do sound clear, and perhaps not the best pick of TRN BA models. Again, when you're listening to the mids, it kind of sounds okay. Does it sound like 8 balanced armatures? Not quite. It's kind of not quite there. So again, I don't think they picked the top tier balanced armatures for the VX Pro Plus. But again, the shell, the dynamic driver, the BA seem to be priced right. They didn't really give you really nice parts at a super value price. I think they gave you parts that were appropriately priced for the price that they are charging. So the treble, again, TRN sometimes prefers to emphasize the lower treble. Again, they bring this forward. That's kind of right there in your face. Is very forward style set. And they roll a little early, which is what you have here. So a lot right here, so everything is forward and clear, and then roll this off so there's a little less fatigue, there's not as much air. But, a very classic TRN style sound with just doing the lower treble in that way. So not really a complaint. I think it was kind of what I expected to hear. And you combine that with, a lower presence. So this is rolled off a little bit. This has kind of a lower presence now. And I think that is a slightly different sound than what I was expecting for TRN. But, I don't think it's... If you are an older TRN fan and you prefer more energy, like the previous VX series, this one is going to sound a little lower on energy, a lot more relaxed. It's not quite the same signature that they've used in the past. But those new to TRN will probably appreciate a more relaxed treble, less fatigue, less of the female poison is what they used to call that area back on TRN sets at the time. And I'll say at $36, you can rebalance the treble with EQ, you dip to 2 to 3K, and add a little air out here into 10K, and it actually opens up the sound, and it creates a more spacious, open sound, and it actually does sound a little bit better. Same thing on the stage, right? The relaxed treble, it's noticeable here. It pulls in just a little bit inward, which is kind of odd for TRN sets, but that's just the way they did this style tuning. But add a little air and EQ, and it will open it up and extend it, and it will sound a little bit more like a flagship. So that's what I quickly got on the VX Pro Plus. So maybe not what I was expecting. Maybe I was hoping it would be a little more like the legendary sets that, made a name for TRN, and maybe not so much something that felt like, a slight cost-cutting measure, but it is what it is. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I will see you next time.